Welcome everyone to Tarot and the Moons. My name is Ingrid. Let's get started. All right, so we have, according to Vedic astrologers, a new moon in Gemini, and according to Western tropical astrologers, we have a new moon in Cancer. So what's this offering all about? Well, it's about the moon and its symbolism of the emotional consciousness, right? So when we are speaking of esoteric traditions, of both the Western Hermeticism and even Indian philosophy esoteric traditions, the moon is understood as something that's more than just, some people say, a satellite, right? It's more than just that. It is regarded as some sort of a reflector of our consciousness, the vessel of our memory through the ability to move the waters here on Earth. And it's also the in esoteric astrology, the moon is also considered to be the soul experiences and some sort of intermediary between our soul and the world of form, which is this material world. So unlike the sun, for example, which symbolizes spiritual essence or this higher self, the moon is representing a conditioned sort of personality. It houses our habits, our instincts, our emotional responses, our inherited tendencies, and our subconscious impressions, right? In Sanskrit philosophy and theories, the impressions that the moon represents is often described as just the subconscious mind. And from this perspective, emotions are not considered necessarily the soul itself, but rather some sort of movement that's connected to this lunar field of consciousness. So when we have joy, fear, attachment, longing, grief, they're all sort of viewed through the changing tides that arises within our emotional body. So the moon's continual waxing and waning has served across many traditions as a symbol of the cyclical nature of emotional experiences. And so for me, doing this offering is all about our ability to regulate our emotion, emotions plural, right? So the esoteric practice is not aimed necessarily as at suppressing our emotions, but at becoming very conscious of our emotions and our patterns so that they can be integrated in one way or another. And so for me, the new moon specifically is occupying a specific place within this type of esoteric symbolism. Yeah. So and this also represents, I would say, a contemplative opportunity for us, especially in a new moon. Because the new moon is time for us to be introspective. It's time for us to purify. It's time to be in an established consciousness with our intentions rather than with our sort of external actions. So when I'm looking at the new moon or the full moon, I'm looking at how our emotions are swinging between these two axis points of Gemini and Cancer, of the Vedic astrological placement of the moon, as well as the Western tropical placement of the moon, because in my opinion, that's more accurately a reflection of how our emotions kind of goes through a cyclical engagement, right? Certainly from the perspective of esoteric astrology. So let's talk about that. So in tropical astrology, as I said, this new moon is in Cancer, but in Vedic astrology, this new moon is in Gemini. And this Gemini position is significant within sort of esoteric interpretations because Gemini has been traditionally associated with communication, but dualities of communications, perceptions, dualities of perceptions, and the relationship between what looks like to be opposites, right? But it's that energy of opposites attracting. So in classical astrology, Gemini is attributed to, or rather, Mercury is attributed to Gemini. And Mercury is the planet governing the intellect, language, learning, interpretation. And in esoteric astrology, specifically as developed by Alice Bailey, which is what I've been reading a lot, she expands on this symbolism of Gemini, and she attributes this Gemini engagement as the divine twins, not simply just two personalities, but a dialogue between the human soul and the spirit self, which is beautiful when you look at astrology through that lens. And it's going to represent this gradual realization that our soul and our spirit are actually not separate. They underline a unity. So, from this perspective, Gemini governs this refined perception rather than emphasizing just information to divide. It's accumulating wisdom and knowledge for a greater understanding, for a greater unification. So, oftentimes, even when we see Gemini as sort of this restless momentum or movement, the search is actually for some sort of synthesis, this effort to reconcile differing opinions into a higher comprehension. So Mercury's esoteric role reflects that process. And yeah, I'll leave it there because you can just riff off a lot on that engagement of Gemini and the new moon in Mercury and the new moon in Gemini. So again, this is less about getting information and it's more about mental clarity for a deeper emotional truth to actually emerge. Now, when we switch over to the Western tropical new moon astrological placement in Cancer, I Cancer is obviously ruled by the moon itself, but it creates a profound resonance between the sign and the lunar placement itself, right? So I feel like it's amplified, and Cancer receives through intuition and emotional sensitivity precisely because of the symbolism of the moon. It's often also associated as the sign of the home, of family, of psychological security, sometimes even nourishment. So, esoterically, those themes that I just mentioned represents, according to Alice Bailey, Cancer represents this gateway through which our consciousness enters some sort of incarnation. And it's sort of like an embodied experience where the soul learns to identify with what is family, what is culture, what is collective humanity, right? So in that way, the Cancer is teaching us that true security cannot be found through external circumstances, but rather within community, within the family, and even within our traditional foundations. So emotional maturity is definitely on the table with this particular new moon in Cancer, because compassion is replacing any idea of possessiveness or fear, which can sometimes be part of that Cancerian field. This overprotective, overzealous energy can be there. And so with the wisdom and the confidence that's being developed through the Gemini engagement, and then we have this beautiful Cancerian moon, our movement from the Gemini energy into the Cancer is a symbol of a progression that's recognized in many traditions as discernment, as an examination of our thoughts, right? That Gemini energy, an examination of our belief system, our language, and our perception through the understanding of our emotional life, which is all about this Cancerian energy. So when I was doing my meditation, and you all know I do my meditation, the word that came up was actually integration. And it was, for me, this integration between the mental realm of Gemini and the emotional realm of Cancer. Gemini, of course, again, seeking that understanding through observation, through communication, while Cancer is seeking it through feeling and belonging. And so integration is the process that I saw by which our insight through this Gemini becomes embodied wisdom, where we understand our intellect and assimilate it into the heart, which is our lived experience of our emotions, right? So it's this integration of the mind with the heart, of the thought with the feeling, of the knowledge with intuition, which is also part of Cancer, and of our awareness of the outer world with our awareness of inner belonging. So, yeah, that's all I got for you today. And integration, again, is one of those words that is really kind of showing us that from this new moon period to the full moon, we will be moving from this clear perception of the Gemini into the emotional embodied understanding of Cancer. And integration can be difficult for some people, or it can be easy and smooth. It depends on what? How you regulate your emotions during this time period. All right. So let's look at the next slide, where I'm going to talk a little bit about who the tarot players are for this new moon. Once again, this is a new moon, and according to Vedic astrologers, this new moon is in the sign of Gemini, and according to Western tropical astrologers, this new moon is in the sign of Cancer. My thesis here is that our emotional connection to the experiences that we're going to have from this new moon until the full moon will be swinging between these two axis points. Now, you also want to take into account your own signs and how do they relate archetypally to Gemini and Cancer. All right, so that's where we're at. Let's put this aside over here. And as with any new moon, it's a perfect time to set forth new intentions, to seed a new vision for yourself, etc. Right? Because this is a perfect time to do that. Why is this? I'm like, this looks backwards. Let's bring this around here. So now Gemini is ruled by the Mercury planet, and the two archetypes that are ruled by Mercury and influenced by this Gemini are the magician and the lover's archetypes. Now, if I gravitate toward one or the other, you will be influenced by Gemini and this Mercury. So chances are the communication aspect will be highlighted for you during this time period. All right. So, whenever we're dealing with this beautiful energy of the magician, and if I pull the magician for you during this time period, this is going to be a really important period for you, because this one vibration is actually in the 2026 energy field. So when we speak of the magician, we're speaking of creativity, we're speaking of action, we're speaking of manifesting your desires. Perfect time to use that self-power, that self-magic that you have to create something new, to visualize something new. Now, when you're looking at this particular card in its more challenging aspect, we're talking about a blocked creativity, okay? Or not learning from mistakes or not practicing, etc., not having the discipline that comes with the energy of one as well. Now, when if I pull the Lover's card, um, this is about major choices that you have in your life. It does have to do with love and soulmates, but also temptations and being put to the test a little bit during this time period. Obviously, it has to do with partnerships or relationships, but also has to do with shared values. Okay. So that's the gist of the energy. Oh, and it's on its more challenging side. This can be about trust issues. This can be about conflicts, disconnections with others, disunion, right? Detachment, a breakup. That's the most in its more challenging aspect. So I'm going to put this over here and then move over to this beautiful energy of the Cancer new moon, ruled by the moon sign itself. And the two archetypes that are ruled by the moon, for those with this energy of Cancer, are the High Priestess and the Chariot. Now, when we're dealing with the High Priestess, we are dealing, sorry, move this over. We are dealing with mystery. We are dealing with intuition. We are dealing with inner knowledge, self-trust, because it's ruled by the moon. This is going to be the cards, or these are going to be the cards that heighten your emotional engagement, right? From now until the full moon. This is really saying things are not going to be revealed to you just yet. You have to use your spirit guides. You have to use your inner intuitive knowledge, right, to acquire this. So, on its more challenging side, this could be about bias or manipulative action, or even lack of emotional control, which often comes with this energy of the Cancerian field. So, lastly, if I pull this card, we're dealing with very much the victory in your life, overcoming obstacles, successes, ambitions, control, right? Because this particular archetype is controlling two opposing forces. And it's also talking about progress and a specific goal. On its more challenging side, when we get the Chariot, this is about forcing your way through. This is about a lack of direction, lack of self-control. This is about feeling aggression and powerlessness versus being in control of your emotions, all right? So if I pull one of these two cards, you'll know that you are being heavily influenced by the Cancerian energy and the planetary influence of the moon. All right, let's go on to the next slide, where I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, no, on the next slide, we're just going to go right to it. And we're going to go from Cancer and make our way around to Gemini. All right, catch you on the next slide. For this reading, I am using this tarot card deck by Carolyn Clark. And this, for me, represents the design in the back, like the moon, this particular moon, which is the new moon energy of the black, right? Because it's like it's literally a new moon, and this it elicits some sort of emotion. So I felt like it was very much associated with this Cancer energy. And then for the oracle representing Gemini, I'm using the literary oracle for obvious reasons of communication, right? So, yeah, those are the two decks that I'm using. And let's begin. Again, we're going to start with Cancer, make our way around, and end with Gemini. So, Cancer. And these have been pre-shuffled already just to try to save some time. So you've got the Empress. Wonderful. So you're ready to birth something new. This is a perfect time for this particular new moon, right? Because that's when we want to set forth these intentions. And you really feel this time around that you're in the seat of command. I would just invite you to sort of not focus on your past achievements necessarily and activate the new ones that want to be birthed through you. And sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, especially if something we've done in the past has already worked, but it's an invitation for you to do that. But you're definitely in your seat of power, creating this new world for yourself. And that was Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Moon is your emotions. This is what we're doing. If it's the sun, it's where you are heading during this new moon period. That's how I see it. And the ascendant is how you're going to get there. Okay. Which you can look at all of your cards, all of your sun, moon, and ascendant, and see what story is unfolding for you for this new moon. So, for those of you with Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, and you've got the Empress, you've also got the Poet. And it says, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul, right? So, for you, I would say definitely use your power of writing to engage this new moon. All right. And this is, by the way, Emily Dickinson. So maybe you can be inspired by something written by Emily Dickinson on how to birth this new world that you are embarking in. The Poet. I love that. And next we have Leo, sun, moon, or rising. Let's see what your reading here is. And you've got the Two of Wands. You are preparing to engage with someone else. This is about, oh, you know what I forgot to do for the Cancer sun, moon, or rising, because I had this Empress energy, and this was about you creating your world. And I should have pulled this one earlier, but I didn't. But I was being drawn to the being insightful, right? These are two very powerful energies, feminine energies within the tarot. And specifically with this one is about you letting go of the past and not relying on that energy of what you've accomplished in the past, but allow what wants to be birthed to come through. And I think the High Priestess can let you in on a little secret. It requires that you rely on your instinct, your inner insight versus your past experience. Apologies to Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising for skipping that. And now we can go to the Leo energy. And I was just saying that you are in the midst of engaging with another. So my eye was getting drawn to having to do with communication. And it's sort of like creating this spark between you and someone else, but it will rely on you and your choices and how you wish to activate this part of the relationship or this aspect of the relationship that has to do with a new way to communicate. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the Rebel. No surprise there for the Leos. The Leos are going to take nothing less than that. This is why it's up to you. This is why it's your choice what you want to do in terms of the relationship that you will have to learn how to communicate differently with or new with for this new moon. So we've got here the archetype of Elizabeth Bennet. So the rebel being that you're not even going to do things that are conforming. The way that you're going to start communicating with this new relationship is not the way that they expect, right? This roaring lion, but this more alchemical, more spirited way that kind of gets what you want at the end, right? So at the end, you're going to get what you want. It has to be a loving choice, all right? This is what the choices, the Lovers card is all about. Make sure that the choice that you make and how you communicate is loving. This is why it's activated by the spirit. Okay, so next we have, oops, did I take the other one? Nope, but I did put this in the wrong location. Have to be careful where I put my cards. We have the Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the Seven of Pentacles. With this, it's all about faith. It's all about what you can garner from the spiritual insight within you. And it's also about you taking the time. Take the time to appreciate what you have actually accomplished through your hard work. There's always going to be, and I am being drawn here to the Chariot card, there's always going to be a goal for you to work on. So don't worry about that. The Chariot's always going to be ready to go, room, room. I just want you to pause a little bit and really appreciate everything that you've been working really hard to accomplish. And once you do that, then with this new moon activation, of course, set forth the next goal. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the romantic, and it's Emma Woodhouse, sorry. For me, and it's another 7 vibration. For me, this is exactly how I want you to be. Romantic about your past accomplishments and what you have actually, like, send it some love. Literally send love to what you have already accomplished rather than moving so quickly to the next thing. Beautiful. And next we have, should be Libra, baby, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the Page of Swords, right? So there's information that's coming your way. It may not be information that you necessarily want because you don't want the responsibilities and you want to start making more loving choices for yourself. But this is a message that you're getting from another during this time period, and you're just going to have to execute. Just make sure that the choices that you make in the execution and the delivery of this new idea, this new assignment, etc., is done from a place of love. That way, this responsibility that you now have to deal with will be smoother the more you work with that field of love, okay? And your guidance is the risk taker, which reminds me, of course, of the Fool. So it is something new that's coming your way, some information that's coming your way, and it is going to feel risky, like it's going against the current, against the wind. But hold on to faith through the spirit of love here and make the choices that are safe, wonderful, and peaceful for you, even though you're going to have to be prepared to sort of defend yourself. All right. And next we have Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And your guidance is the Nine of Swords. So something is coming toward you that you might feel a little bit like it's heavy. It's not something you want to deal with. I am being drawn here to the Magician because I want you to be careful in the words that you use and how you communicate and how you move forward. This is a construct of your imagination. It's not the reality. The reality is that you can change your mind and look at things from a different perspective and use your inner magic to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. Because it's not going to be avoided. So you might as well use inner magic. So use the tools that you have to make it a smoother transition for you. And here we have truth. right? So for me, it's like that's what I just actually finished saying. The truth of the matter is that this nightmare is a construct of your mind. It's not actually happening. What can actually happen is your ability to use your inner magic to let go of this fictitious strife that you're creating, right? And this is very mercurial. So be careful about what you feed your mind, okay? And next we have, should be Sagittarius. Sun, moon, or rising. Let's see what your card says. And you've got the Nine of Cups. So the Nine of Cups is like really, and I'm being drawn here to the lovers, the choices. It's you really kind of protecting over your emotions and being very careful and discerning of who you share your emotions with at this time, which is totally fine. You just want to make sure that you're doing it not from a space of defensiveness, but from a space of wanting to honor yourself in a more loving way. And here you've got the monster, right? So don't be the monster. This is where I mean, like, don't close off your emotions or push people away, right? For reasons that are about defenses or wanting to shield up, right? You want to engage the opposite of that, and no need to explain to someone, but just being aware and discerning. Okay, I'm going to expend my emotional energy over here versus over here where I am closed off to opening my heart to other possibilities, right? So always make the loving choice for yourself versus trying to shut somebody out of your life, because that would be an unloving thing to do, right? So next we have Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, and we have the Six of Swords. Guys, your this engagement with this new moon, there's a lot of mental clutter going on collectively, right? So we want to make sure that we are clear moving forward, clear in terms of where we want to head toward, right? So the Six of Wands is at least guaranteeing you, Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, that you finally have a goal, that you're finally going somewhere that's going to take you to smoother waters or take you to a safe haven. And that's happening actually quite fast because you've actually realized what the Sagittarius energy needed to realize or needs to realize, that the most important thing for you to do right now is to take care of your mental health, right? That is the goal. That's where you're heading. That's the energy that I want you to keep in mind as you're moving forward. Mental health is important. And then we've got here the rebirth, and mental health is important for the rebirth, right? You're moving to smoother waters, waters that are not choppy. You're nurturing yourself. You're quieting the mind, right? Leaving behind the swords. You're quieting the mind as you move forward. And this very much felt like inner child work, Capricorn, especially with the rebirth. Loving that. Okay. Next, we have Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising. Let's see what you have here, Aquarius. And you've got the Ace of Wands, something new, something percolating, a new idea. You're actually creating magic. You're using your wand. You're using your creative forces for this period of time. Pretty smooth and straightforward. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the grifter, right? So you want to be able to be careful. You're such an innovative person. You're such a creative energy force. I want you to honor that and know that when you get this Ace of Wand and I pull toward the Magician, this is a solo sort of project. This is about you and what you can create. Don't fall for the wizard. Don't fall for the grifter. Don't fall for the person that's going to look at your great idea and say, "Hey, listen, do you want to we can market this like da 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 da." don't do that to yourself. You are someone who innovates in a way that other people who are used to old uh, ways of marketing will not understand, right? So stick with the spirit of your heart, create from the inner magic that you have, be aware of the grifters, okay? And it hasn't worked well for you in the past anyway to work with some another. So, learn from your past lessons as well, Aquarius. Now we have Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising. What do we have? And we've got the Queen of Wands, another energy of creativity coming in from the spirit world, from the psychic world, from the world of mystery, right? So the Queen of Wands and the High Priestess, they understand each other because they understand that the purpose of life, right, or their purpose in life is to become the thing that you want to create versus seeking it from some outside sources. All right. And then your guidance is the warrior. Be like this warrior energy of Frederick Douglass. Be innovative with spirit, with ignition. And I'm seeing this red energy here with the element of fire to move through what needs to be moved through in order for you to have clear access to your inner psychic powers. Because you are, after all, a Pisces. And next we have, should be Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Let's see what you've got here. And you've got the Hierophant. So you're here to teach. You're teaching people higher knowledge. You're engaging with their spiritual self. This is another high priestess energy coming forward. Actually, this is the duality, the male and the female, the unity of the one, the inner child, the golden sphere, right? So you are ready to teach at this higher level. And it's, seated now. This is the moment of intention so that you can really come into glory of what you know how to do, which is to become a leader in, it looks like, a spiritual engagement. Let's see what your guidance is. And it's the family. You're creating your family. You're engaging with the family here. You are actually sticking with a tradition that's coming through for this period of time for you. So step up to that leadership role. All right. And next we have Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the Seven of Cups. Be careful about illusions, right? Be careful about being misled or being, again, I'm bringing in this High Priestess because if you don't learn how to rely on your own inner guidance system to make these choices that you're going to have to be interfacing with, I could have chosen the Lover's card, but clearly make the loving choice. But if you're stuck on illusions, you might think you're making the loving choice. So I want you to focus on this High Priestess and be insightful, right? Do the homework, be investigative of the choices that are being presented to you. And then you'll have an informed decision that relies on your gut instincts, okay? And then you've got here identity. This is perfect. Identify what it is that you want from the offerings and the choices that are being made to you before you go and look at the sparkly little things and the shiny little things and go in that direction without full knowledge of what's going on. And that full knowledge is something that resides within you. Okay. And finally, we have Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Let's see what your guidance is. And you've got the Page of Swords. And the Page of Swords, just give me 1 second. I have to turn something off. Sorry about that. So the Page of Swords is bringing, sorry, not the Page of Swords, the Five of Swords. Well, yeah, the Five of Swords is careful what you are thinking about other people. careful not to judge them and assume the worst about them. You have to be very careful about the gossip factor at this time, because if you're not, you can find yourself in some really big jams, right? So I want you to do your spiritual practice, Gemini, for this period of time so that you can have a clear mind and not be so harsh on those that you don't even know, right? You don't know them. That's the beauty of the high priestess. She's telling you, I've got the answer to the inquiry that you're asking, but I'm not going to give it to you because you've got to rely on something other than the mind construct. You've got to rely on the heart, that you've got to go deep into the space of intuitive knowledge. And so whatever's going on here, this is drama that you're actually, it came across to me, sorry, Geminis, but it came across to me as something that you're creating versus a reality of the situation. And that's something that you're creating is drama. And here you've got wilderness, right? So again, the wolves at night, like howling. You do want to be careful about who you're attacking and why you're attacking them with your words or your actions, because under this influence of the new moon, things are just not going to be that clear. Remember that part of the other part of the new moon is that the sun's light is not shining on it just yet, right? So we want to be actually very careful about our thought patterns and what we are creating with our mind, that world we're creating with our mind. All right, everyone, stay safe, and I will catch you on the full moon in a couple weeks. Bye.